Revolution and Counter-Revolution, or Germany in 1848, by Karl Marx, edited by Eleanor Marx Aveling. Recording by Kate Barratt. This is a LibriVox recording. All LibriVox recordings are in the public domain. For more information or to volunteer, please visit LibriVox.org. Revolution and Counter-Revolution, or Germany in 1848, by Karl Marx. Note by the Editor. The following articles are now, after 45 years, for the first time collected and printed in book form. They are an invaluable pendant to Marx's work on the coup d'état of Napoleon III, Der 18. Brumaire des Louis Bonaparte. Both works belong to the same period, and both are what Engels calls "excellent specimens of that marvellous gift of Marx of apprehending clearly the character, the significance, and the necessary consequences of great historical events at a time when these events are actually in course of taking place, or are only just completed." These articles were written in 1851 to 1852, when Marx had been about 18 months in England. He was living with his wife, 3 young children, and their lifelong friend, Helen de Muth, in 2 rooms in Dean Street, Soho, almost opposite the Royalty Theatre. For nearly 10 years they had been driven from pillar to post. When, in 1843, the Prussian government suppressed the Rhenish Gazette which Marx had edited, he went with his newly married wife, Jenny von Westphalen, to Paris. Not long after, his expulsion was demanded by the Prussian government. It is said that Alexander von Humboldt acted as the agent of Prussia on this occasion, and M. Guizot was, of course, too polite to refuse the request. Marx was expelled, and betook himself to Brussels. Again the Prussian government requested his expulsion, and where the French government had complied, it was not likely the Belgian would refuse. Marx received marching orders. But at this same time the French government that had expelled Marx had gone the way of French governments, and the new provisional government, through Ferdinand Flocon, invited the "brave et loyal" Marx to return to the country whence "tyranny had banished him, and where he, like all fighting in the sacred cause, the cause of the fraternity of all peoples," would be welcome. The invitation was accepted, and for some months he lived in Paris. Then he returned to Germany in order to start the new Rhenish Gazette in Köln, and the Rhenish Gazette writers had very lively times. Marx was twice prosecuted, but as the juries would not convict, the Prussian government took the nearer way and suppressed the paper. Again Marx and his family returned to the country whose doors had only a few short months before been thrown open to him. The sky had changed, and the government. "We remained in Paris," my mother says in some biographical notes I have found, "a month. Here also there was to be no resting place for us. One fine morning the familiar figure of the sergeant of police appeared with the announcement that Karl et sa dame must leave Paris within 24 hours. We were graciously told we might be interned at Vannes in the Morbihan. Of course we could not accept such an exile as that, and I again gathered together my small belongings to seek a safe haven in London. Karl had hastened thither before us." The "us" were my mother, Helen de Muth, and the 3 little children, Jenny, Madame Longuet, Laura, Madame Lafargue, and Edgar, who died at the age of 8. The haven was safe indeed, but it was storm-tossed. Hundreds of refugees, all more or less destitute, were now in London. There followed years of horrible poverty, of bitter suffering, such suffering as can only be known to the penniless stranger in a strange land. The misery would have been unendurable but for the faith that was in these men and women, and but for their invincible humour. I use the German word because I know no English one that quite expresses the same thing, such a combination of humour and good humour, of light-hearted courage and high spirits. That readers of these articles may have some idea of the conditions under which Marx was working, under which he wrote them and the 18. Brumaire, and was preparing his first great economical work, Zur Kritik der politischen Ökonomie, published in 1850.
Sample complete. Ready to continue?